Hi, I'm Jason. We just started a Facebook page, Soil, to try to answer some questions that some of our neighbors had that kept being posed to me, and they asked for information to help them start their own gardens. So that's why we started our page, and to answer those questions, my wife has some of the questions that have been asked to her.
So the first question is, what region are we in?
We are specifically in 8B, which is a subtropical climate, and we're in the North Houston area, specifically the Woodland Spring area, and we can support basically any food crop that we want. We can grow. It just may not end up as a perennial crop. So we have a good long growing season of approximately 300 days. We do dip down into the freezing point a few times during the winter, but never really stays there for any length of time. So with a little bit of care, we can typically grow those hardy plants throughout the winter.
So the next question I have is, when should I start my spring garden, and what can I do now to prepare for it?
Spring gardens, generally after the last frost date, of spring, so mid-February, around Valentine's Day is typically when we get our last frost date. Varies from year to year. We can get a late frost, sometimes early March, but it's a pretty safe bet here that we shouldn't get a frost date or a freeze day after about mid to late February.
And what can people do to be getting their gardens ready before starting to plant in February?
Put soil in a raised bed and cover it, and make sure that it's got some organic matter in it that will mature over the winter and invite different soil microbes and different bacteria into that organic matter to help break it down, to help prepare it, to make it more seasoned, to when you plant it, it's not freshly made soil, which can sometimes not be the most plant accessible and plant available for those nutrients.
Another question that I had was, what type of soil do we have here in our area?
We have in our specific area, which it varies from area to area in the region. We have several throughout the state, but ours is hard-packed clay, which is very nutrient dense. However, it does not allow water to penetrate and root growth to really happen. So with this gumbo soil, we call it here, it needs to be heavily amended and heavily worked to make it functional and soft enough for these plants to really take root and grab on, and not create a bowl underneath the root ball to just hold water and rot the plants from their roots. There's another method that you can cover it with some wood chips and let that break down, and that will invite the organic matter and the soil microbes to break that down, and also break down the clay along with it. But we can save that for another video.
So what soil products do you recommend starting with?
I went with a typical garden soil for my first start with gardening. Did pretty well the first year. I did notice a few things in it that I wouldn't have liked in it. It was supposed to be organic, but I found things like an occasional rusty nail or plastic that I would not prefer to be in my soil. So I sifted that soil out, found everything that was foreign that I would not like in it, and it's doing very well now. This year I got a lot more soil from Ace Hardware, and it was a soil mender product, an organic soil, and came out a lot cleaner, a lot finer, not as many rocks, and definitely not near as many foreign objects in there. So I've been pretty happy with it. I expect it to do even better next year after it's had time to season and mature and get more nutrients that I put back into it established.
Another question that I was asked was, what plants should I start with?
I would say start with what you like to eat. And that's what I did. And I started with okra, and I started with lettuce and spinach. We are, constantly expanding our food that we like to eat, and trying to do new ingredients for our cooking. French dandelions, we're going to cook this next year and grow this next year. 3 different kinds of cucumbers, dragon's egg cucumbers, and some wild different heirloom foods. So I say generally whatever you like to eat. If it's cucumbers, if it's spinach, if it's lettuce, plant it.
One of the questions that I've also received was, I have an interest in starting a garden and planting a garden, but I'm afraid I'm going to kill it. So what can I start with that'll be hardy?
At this point in the year, we can plant any leafy greens. Leafy greens are so hardy. They're really hard to kill. Pests can come and nibble on them. Slugs and snails and caterpillars can come and nibble on them and take some leaves. But generally, the growth is so vigorous that it overtakes that, and they cannot damage the crop as a whole. It may take a few plants, but you're going to get the majority of it yourself. And of course, I'm speaking about organic planting and organic gardening. We don't spray anything of any sort on our plants besides an occasional Dr. Bronner's soap if I see some pests on there. So that's all we've done so far. That's a great one to come through the winter. In the spring, more pests come out, so you have to be a little bit more vigorous about taking those pests off. We do a manual control here, so that means we just walk around and look for pests, pick them off, squash them, cut off the affected areas of the plants, and go that route.
A couple of people asked about growing sweet potatoes. What has been your experience growing sweet potatoes?
Sweet potatoes are an amazing vegetable. I like to say that if you drop a sweet potato piece on the ground and it stays moist in the soil for a few days, it will take root and it will grow. We planted 2 different types of sweet potatoes here. The Molokai Purple, which we ordered from a company, a seed catalog, and some orange organic sweet potatoes that we got from Trader Joe's. Both of them did phenomenally well. We grew the vines over the fence so it didn't take over the yard or the flower beds. It was a really good placement in the garden. That's something you have to consider. If you have watermelon vines or cantaloupe vines or other type of vining vegetables that are going to want to run along the yard and the ground, make sure you trellis those up. Make sure you put them in a more appropriate place, out of way, especially with a small yard like we have here. We've got to be really space conscious. So sweet potatoes are wonderful. They take off, and they are very difficult to kill. We even had some pest damage with ours. No problem with the entire crop.
Another question that I have is, what should I start with? Should I start with seeds? Should I start with bulbs? What type of plants should I start with?
So you can do, cuttings, small seedlings. That's going to give you the quickest results. Obviously, you can, if you have a plant that's already bearing fruit or a plant that already has leaves, they're going to mature faster. They're going to get to fruition at a quicker point earlier in the season. You'll get more food out of it. It's more expensive that way, and you might not be able to afford as many plants. But you can buy those, readily available at Home Depot and Lowe's and any local nursery, which, I definitely want to encourage you guys to support your local nursery instead of a big box store. But by far the most economical way is planting by seed. So you can get, depending on the crop, 1,000 seeds, say carrots, 1,000 seeds at least for $2. And so you can have 5 years worth of carrots for $2. And you can get purple and red and yellow and white and all different sorts of rare exotic carrots for a very, very affordable price if you're willing to wait and kind of help those seeds along.
And where do you purchase your seeds?
The majority of our seeds have been purchased through Baker Creek. Here's their 2016 whole seed catalog. It's really nice. It's full color. It has generally a color description and picture of almost almost everything that they have in there. So I've been pretty happy with the quality of the seeds that they give, as well as the presentation of the catalog. Prices are good. I like what they stand for, so I've been supporting them pretty well for the past few years. Another one I've heard some good things about is Southern Exchange Seed Company. It's a little bit smaller catalog, not quite as elaborate, but it supports local artists, and the artists do a lot of the renditions of the produce, and it has basic descriptions, basic photos of the produce, and again they stand for non-GMO. They are heirloom seeds. Both of those companies are heirloom producers, really supporting the purity of the seeds and not having it be corrupted with any sort of cross-pollination or GMO influence. So I really like that. There's also Johnny Seeds, so you can go to johnnyseeds.com. I don't have their catalog, but I have heard some good things about them too.
And can you purchase from Baker Creek or Southern Exposure Seed Exchange online as well?
Yes, Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, I think is exactly that.com. I can double check on that, but yeah.
And
I'm sorry, it's southernexposure.com. And the Baker Creek is rareseeds.com. And they have a Facebook page, and they have a wonderful website, and it'll tell you actually, it's really helpful. They tell you the difficulty of growing a certain plant, as well as how long it takes to fruit.
Okay. Well, I think that's all the questions I have for you tonight. So we will put out another video on some more information later on in the week.
Awesome. Happy growing.